Hello guys, AirsoftAl here, and no, you are not, you're not dreaming. I promised you guys I'd do this, so I might as well do it now. I will be reading to you War of the Worlds, or my bad, The War of the Worlds by H.G. Wells. And a little bit of backstory before I begin reading. I love H.G. Wells' work. I'm a huge Wellian fan. I love Orson Welles. Yeah, go by Kitty, because I need to explain this. I'm a big Orson Welles fan as well. I love Orson Welles' work. And each of their books is so amazing. I love the work either way. And I know a certain plucky Brit out there is probably going to comment on my video and say, oh, I'm doing the accent wrong. Oh, I'm doing this wrong. Oh, I'm doing that wrong. Because originally H.G. Wells was British. Or English. Irish? Scottish? It's whatever. I don't care. I love his work, though. And, of course, being a bigger fan, I have Jeff Wayne's original. I have Jeff Wayne's remastered musical albums of War of the Worlds. I have the original 1938 38 or 39 broadcast of War of the Worlds. I've got the 1970s broadcast, both of them. The first one and the remastered one. I'm just a big H.G. Wells fan, and I love the movie adaptations as well. It's really nice. So, enough of my gabbing. Let's go ahead and get into the book. And the way I'm going to do this is I'm going to read at my own pace. But if you want to, you can pause the video here and not hear my voice and just read the pages. It's totally cool. I can understand why you want to avoid my voice, but you know what? I'm going to try and read it as serious as possible, because that's the only way you can read War of the Worlds, is as serious as possible. So, here we go. The War of the Worlds. But who shall dwell in these worlds, if they be inhabited? Are we, or they, lords of the world? And how are all things made for man? Kepler quoted it in the Anatomy of Melancholy. Okay, gonna get that word right. Okay, Book 1, The Coming of the Martians. Sure. Yeah. Ah, shit, no, fuck. Okay, I'm not gonna mess with it anymore. Okay, here we go. Chapter 1, The Eve of War. No one would have believed, in the last years of the 19th century, that this world was being watched keenly and closely by intelligences. Like I said, you could just pause the video and just read this for yourself if you want. Greater than man's, and yet as mortal as his own. That as man bushed themselves about their various concerns, they were scrutinized and studied, perhaps almost as narrowly as a man with a microscope might scrutinize the transient creatures that swarm and multiply in a drop of water. Scroll down a bit. With infinite complacency, men went to and fro over this globe about their little affairs, serene in their assurance of their empire over matter. It is possible that the inferiors under the microscope do the same. No one gave a thought to the older worlds of space as source of human's danger, or thought of them only to dismiss the idea of life upon them as impossible or improbable. It is curious to recall some of the mental habits of those departed days. At most terrestrial... I'm so messing up these words. I'm sorry, guys. But, yeah, like I said, just pause the video and read it for your own. Slowly scroll through the little thing down here and just do that, okay? I promise you, it's totally worth it. Only thought of them only... Oh, my bad, I already did that. Bleh! Men, fastened. There might be other men upon Mars. perhaps inferior to themselves, and ready to welcome a missionary enterprise. Yet across the gulf of space, minds that are to ours as ours are to those. The beasts that perish in intellects, vast and cool and unsympathetic, regarded this earth with envious eyes. And slowly and surely they drew their plans against us. I'm not going to lie, that one paragraph, just those eerily scary words that are literally played on the album, the radio play, everything. Scary as hell, even to this day. And even so, I love the way it is, because this book is basically H.G. Wells' attempt to analyze the Boer Wars, or what's going on with the Zulu tribe, or the Zulu Wars, which is actually a pretty... I just like it, okay? I really do. I love how H.G. Wells, he was basically a humanitarian. He was pro-women's rights. He was an amazing human being that I was so sad. I'm just sad that he is not like, I would have loved to know that his later, well, basically the best way I can say it is this. I am happy that he is not alive today, because he would be so disappointed in what humanity and mankind has gotten to, that even then, I think he would have still wrote a book about it, which would have been amazing to see, actually. And I'm not sure if his descendants are writing books, or if they're doing movies or plays or anything like that. I know Orson Welles did an adaptation of War of the Worlds, and that sent every fucking panic. That would have been, oh my god, that just made everybody freaking panic. That was insanity to them, because they thought it was actually happening. And I have to admit, if somebody tried doing that same stuff here today, I think it would have been a little bit different. But anyway, enough of my gabbing, back to the book, which, again, you probably have already paused the video just to read a little bit more, which I would have been fine with that. I would have not cared a bit, because I know you guys would have been reading it just as I was. So, back to the book reading. And early in the 20th century came the Great Disillusionment. The planet Mars, I scarcely need to remind the reader, revolves about the sun at a mere distance of 140 million miles, and the light and heat it receives from the sun is barely half that is received by this world. I'm not gonna lie, scientifically speaking, that's actually pretty good. That's actually pretty nice for the technology they had back then. I'm sorry, I know I'm basically marveling at how it is, but I'm sorry, guys. I'm sorry. It must be, if the nebula hypothesis has any truth, which it does, older than our world, and long before this earth ceased to be molten. Life upon its surface must have begun its course. The fact that it is serenely 1/7 of the volume of the earth must have accelerated its cooling to the temperature at which life could begin. It has air and water, and all that is necessary for the support of animate existence. Yet so vain is man, and so blinded by his vanity, that no writer up to the very end of the 19th century expressed any idea that intelligent life might have developed therefore, or indeed it at all, beyond its earthly level. Nor was it generally understood that since Mars is older than our Earth, was certainly a quarter of the superficial era, and remoter from the sun, it necessarily follows that it is not only more distant from time's beginning, but near its end. I'm going to go to about page 15, and I'm going to stop right there, and we'll pick this up tomorrow. Okay, guys? Okay. The circular cooling that must someday overtake our planet has already gone far indeed with our neighbor. Its physical condition is still a larger mystery. But we know now that even in its equatorial region, the midday temperature barely approaches that of our coldest winter. Its air is much more that word than ours. Its oceans have shrunk until they cover but a third of its surface, and its slow seasons change how huge snowcaps gather and melt about either poles and periodically inundate its temperate zones. My lips are getting a little dry. That last stage of existence, which to us is still incredibly remote, has become a present-day problem for the inhabitants of Mars. The imminent pressure of necessity. Now I'm gonna quit using the voice because I know a lot of you probably find that annoying, so it's whatever. Necessity has brightened their intellects, enlarged their powers, and hardened their hearts. So, in a basic sense, it's one of those things of they just kinda, yeah. Okay, here we go. And looking across space with instruments and intelligence such as we have serenely dreamed? Or scarcely. Scarcely is what it is. Okay, my bad. Scarcely dreamed of. They see at its nearest distance of 35 million miles sunward of them a morning star of hope. Our own warmer planet, green with vegetation and gray with water, with a cloudy atmosphere, eloquent and of fertility, would glimpse through its drifting cold with cloud wisp of broad stretches of populous country and narrow, navy crowded seas. And we men, the creatures who inhabit this earth, must be to them at least as alien and lowly as are the monkeys. Oh, come on, man, leave the monkeys out of this. And that word, to us, the intellectual side of man already admits that life is an incessant struggle for existence. And it would seem that this too is the belief of the minds upon Mars. Their world is far gone in its cooling, and this world is still crowded with life, but crowded only with what they regard as inferior animals. To carry warfare sunward is indeed their only escape from the destruction that generation after generation creeps upon them. And before we judge of them too harshly, we must remember what ruthless and utter destruction our own species has wrought. Well, let's see here. The bomb, the dropping of the 2 atomic weapons on Japan, the Holocaust, the biological warfare of World War I, the Spanish-American War, the Civil War, the Revolution, and then of course after that we got the Korean War, the horrors of Vietnam, Bay of Pigs. I could go on. Literally, the list of our crimes against ourselves is just huge. It just goes on and on for centuries, basically. So yeah, I'm not gonna do that. Not only upon animals such as the vanished bison and the dodo, yeah, but upon its inferior races, the Tasmanians, in spite of their human likeness, were entirely swept out of existence in a war of extermination waged by European immigrants in the space of 50 years. Are we such absolutes of mercy as to complain if the Martians warred in the same spirit? No, not really, because we had it coming. It's called karma. The Martians seem to have calculated their distance with amazing subtlety. Their mathematical learning is evidently far in excess of ours, and to have carried out their preparations with a well-nigh perfect unanimity. Had our instruments permitted it, we might have seen the gathering trouble far back in the 19th century. Men like Schiaparelli watched the red planet. It is odd, by the by, that for countless centuries Mars has been the star of war. Star Wars. I'm sorry. Failed to interpret the fluctuating appearance of markings they mapped so well. All that time the Martians must have been getting ready. During the opposition of 1894, a great light was seen on the illuminated part of the disk. First at the Lick Observatory. That's an actual observatory, guys. That's a real place. Lick is a real place in England. Then by Perton of Nice. Okay, before I go any further, I want to address someone in England. Why are your towns and villages so weirdly named? Lick, Nice, Cunningham, Nottingham, Leadingham, Mulberry Hill. I just want to know, guys. I really do. I just want to know. Okay? Okay. Back to the book. And then by other observers. English readers heard of it first in the issue of Nature dated August 2nd. I am inclined to think that this blaze may have been the casting of the huge gun in the vast pit sunk into their planet, from which their shots were fired at us. Peculiar markings as yet unexplained were seen near the site of that outbreak during the next two oppositions. The storm burst upon us 6 years ago. Now, as Mars approaches opposition, Level of Java. Really? I'm sorry, I can't. The reason I say this is because I know a lot of you already made the joke. So, yeah, I'm just going to look at you and say, really? Really? You had to make that joke? Really? Set the wires of the astronomical exchange palpitating, that word, with the amazing intelligence of a huge outbreak of incandescent gas upon the planet. It had occurred towards midnight of the 12th of August, to be exact, and the spectroscope to which he had at once resorted indicate a mass of flaming gas, cheerfully hydrogen, moving with an enormous velocity towards this earth. This jet of fire had become invisible upon 12:15. He compared it to a colossus puff of flame. Suddenly and violently squirted out of the planet, as flaming gases rushed out of a gun. A singularity approached its phrase it provided. Yet the next day there was nothing of this in the papers except a little note in the Daily Telegraph. and the world went ignorant of one of the greatest dangers that ever threatened the human race. I might not have heard of the eruption at all had I not met Ogilvy, a very well-known character. The well-known astronomer at Ottershaw, whatever. He was immensely excited at the news, and in the excess of his feelings invited me up to take a turn with him that night in a serenity of the Red Planet. In spite of all that had happened since, I still remembered that vigil very distinctly. The black and silent observatory. The shadowed lantern throwing a feeble glow upon the floor, in the corner that's the steadily ticking of the clockwork of the telescope. The little slit of the roof, an oblong profundity with the stardust streaked across it. Ogilvy moved about, invisible but audible. Looking through the telescope, one saw a circle of deep blue, and the little round planet swimming in the field. It seemed such a little thing, so bright and small and still, faintly marked with transversive stripes, and slightly flattened from the perfect round, but so little it was, so silverly warm, a pin's head. Page 10. Of light. It was as if it quivered, but really this was the telescope vibrating with the activity of the clockwork that kept the planet in view. As I watched, the planet seemed to grow larger and smaller, and to advance and recede. But that was simply that my eyes were tired. 40 millions of miles it was from us, more than 40 million miles of void. Few people realize the immensity of the vacancy in which the dust of the material universes swims. Near it in the field, I remember, were 3 faint points of light, 3 telescopic stars, infinitely remote, and all around it was the unfathomable darkness of empty space. You know how the blackness looks on a frosty starlight night? In a telescope it seems far profounder and invisible to me because it was so remote and small. Flying swiftly and steadily towards me across that incredible distance, drawing nearer every minute by so many thousands of miles, came the thing they were sending us. The thing that was to bring so much struggle and calamity and death to the earth. I never dreamed of it. Then as I watched, no one on earth dreamed that unearthly missile. That night, too, there was another juddering of gas from the distant planet. I saw it, a reddish flash. At the edge, the slightest projection of the outline just as the chronometer struck midnight. And at that I told Ogilvy as he took my place. The night was warm and I was thirsty, and I went stretching my legs clumsily and feeling my way in the darkness to the little table where the siphon stood, where Ogilvy exclaimed at the streamer of gas that came out towards us. The night another visible missile started on its way to the Earth from Mars, just a second or so under 24 hours after the first one. I remember how I sat on the table, there in the blackness, with patches of green and crimson swimming before my eyes. I wish I had a light. Smoke by. Little suspecting the meaning of the minute gleam I have seen in all that I would presently bring me. Ogilvy watched till 1, and then he gave it up, and we lit the lantern and walked over to his house. Down below the darkness were Ottershaw and Chestersea. Seriously, guys, the names, villages. If any Englishmen who watched my channel, please explain. And all their hundreds of people sleeping in peace. Until they horribly die the next day. Spoilers! He was full of speculation that night about the conditions of Mars, and scoffed it at the vulgar idea of its having inhabitants, who were singular. His idea was the meteorites might be falling in a heavy shower upon the planet, or that a huge volcanic explosion was in progress. He pointed out to me how unlikely it was that organic evolution had taken the same direction than the two adjacent planets. The chances against anything man-like on Mars are millions to 1, he said. So he said in the song as well. Look what happened to him. Hundreds of observers saw the flame that night, and the night after about midnight, and again the night after, and so for 10 nights a flame each night. Why the shots ceased after the 10th, no one on Earth has attempted to explain. It might be the gases of the firing caused the Martians inconvenience. Well, no duh. I mean, hell, if we fire a cannon every day at 10, everybody'd be freaking pissed. Dense clouds of smoke or dust, visible through a powerful telescope on Earth, has little gray, fluctuating patches spread through the clearness of the planet's atmosphere, and obscure its more familiar features. Even the daily papers woke up to the disturbance at the last, and popular notes appeared here, there, and everywhere concerning the volcanoes upon Mars, the ceremonic periodical punch. I remember made a happy use of it in the political cartoon, and all unsuspected those missiles the Martians had fired at us drew earthward, rushing now at a pace of many miles. A second thought the empty gulf of space, hour by hour, day by day, nearer and nearer. It seems to me now almost incredibly wonderful, that with that swift fate hanging. Let me just go ahead and get this here. Over us, men could go about their petty concerns as they did. I remember how jubilant Markham was at securing a new photograph of the planet for the illustrated paper. He edited in those days. People in these letters, in later times, serenely realized the obsolescence and enterprise of our 19th century papers. For my own part, I was much occupied in learning to ride the bicycle. What you guys don't know is that back then, nobody knew how to ride a bicycle. Nobody. It was like really expensive in their money. It was like $1, I think? Maybe more, I'm not sure. Pretty expensive though. And busy upon a series of papers discussing the probable developments of moral ideas as civilization progressed. One night, the first missile then could serenely have been 10 million miles away. I went for a walk with my wife. Oh, his wife. His lovely wife. It was starlight, and I explained the signs of the zodiac. Really, dude? You're a zodiac person? Cool. To her, and pointed out Mars, a bright dot of light creeping towards which so many telescopes were pointed. It was a warm night. Coming home, a party of excursions from Chester or Isleworth passed us. Singing and playing music, there were lights in the upper windows of the houses as the people went to bed. From the railway stations in the distance came the sound of shunting trains, ringing and rumbling, softened almost into melody by the distance. My wife pointed out to me the brightness of the red, green, and yellow signal lights, hanging in the framework against the sky. It seemed so safe and tranquil. Chapter 2. The Falling Star. They came the night of the first falling star. It was... I'm just going to stop right here because I don't want to get you guys started on this. So, yeah. Thank you guys for watching. I've been AirsoftAl, and I will see you guys in the next reading. Stay safe out there, and watch out for the Martians. Oh, and to any Englishman who might be pissed at me because of how badly I butchered the accent, or butchered some names, or kept asking questions about the English countryside, well, if you got a beef about it, contact me, and we'll try and get, and hell, if you can, and you have the ability to, hack on my show. I dare you, I double dog dare you, hack into my stream and try and get me to stop. Huh? Huh? Until next time.